What's going on, my YouTube family? What's up, man? I know y'all probably been wondering why I've been at. I appreciate the support, though. Appreciate everybody that's been commenting and liking, subscribing. Appreciate y'all so far on my journey. Y'all been definitely meaning a lot to me. Y'all know I love y'all like my real family, should I say. I just been having to take a mental break. Y'all know I got to distinguish myself from this camera sometimes. You just got to take a mental break. I've been having to distinguish myself, get back focused, get in the Word of God, find myself, understand who I truly am, and, just get some more ideas to bring to y'all outside of the camera. So I took a few days off. But today I'll be talking about maturity, why that's so important, and how age really don't define maturity at that. Myself, I came across this particular subject of life at an early age. I would say it's always been in me. I would say maturity has always been embedded in me. God kind of placed that onto me at an early age. He always kind of gave me that chosen, aspect of life where I was the one that was going to be a little bit further ahead than a lot of people that I was around. Not to brag or boast upon that, but to be the one that was I was always like a leader in most environments, whether it was family, friends, or even just in random environments that I may not even know of or may not even have any type of fellowship with people with. So, I was always the one that was a little bit more mature for my age, even as a young kid. So up until now, some people envied that, some people understood, and they acknowledged me for it, which I had no problem with. But I've always come across a lot of people that were very arrogant, egotistical, whether it was co-workers, family members, and things like that. And one thing, that they always carried on with was that age defines maturity. If they're older than me or, someone else or whatever, if they're older than you, you can't tell them nothing. They know it all. A lot of people think that, if they've been through things that you haven't been through, or they've seen things you haven't seen, you can't tell them nothing. I beg to differ. I disagree with that because, of course, experiences shapes a person and makes you who you are throughout life. But, a person may be younger than you and may know more than you in certain aspects of life. And me personally, I'm the type of person, I believe that you can learn something from anyone. It doesn't matter about what path of life you walk on. Me personally, I learn things from foolish people, and I'm a wise guy. I'm not saying I don't make mistakes, but I try my best to walk on a righteous path of wisdom, knowledge, understanding, and courage. And I try to make I'll try to make my next move my best move, should I say, and I ask God to help me see my path of righteousness that He put me on. So I learn from people that are on different paths, whether they similar to me, whether we like-minded, people from in different aspects of business, people that are more wealthier in different environments, that may be making more money, people that aren't making as much money, poor people, whatever the case may be, people that have addiction problems, whatever the case may be. I always take some from a little bit of everything and everybody. That's just how I've always been in life, and I feel like that's a big way to learn and gain knowledge because, everything ain't always going to be given to me and handed to me verbally and physically. So that's something I always had to learn and understand, especially from a knowledgeable standpoint in life, because, I was taught and told certain things about, the righteous way of living, what not to do. But a lot of things that I saw in life were negative, and I learned from that. In my family and even in life in general, growing up, I saw a lot of the wrong things, and I understood, okay, that's something, I wouldn't want to partake in, or these people I don't need to be around full time if I don't have to. Or we are around each other in school, then let's keep it like that, because I can't control that, of course, if it's only 8 hours a day in school. And I see a lot of people behavior patterns and mannerisms and who they really are in school. Outside of that, we have no contact. So things like that, I just always kind of took things and ran with it and understood that, I see things for what it is, not for what I want it to be. Same with people. But yeah, when it comes to maturity, age does not define that. A lot of people that feel like that and think like that, I feel like they lost mentally. They feel like they know it all. They got this egotistical, arrogant, cocky aspect of living, and that's called pride. It's all tied into pride, which that should be broken. If you have a chance, if you're looking at this video and you someone that thinks like that, that's something that's a spiritual aspect of thinking that should be you should reconsider their way of living like that, because if you somebody that's embedded in that type of mentality, you won't make it far in life. You really won't excel, because if you're someone that thinks that maturity is based on age, and you think you may not be able to be told anything by someone younger, or you may be, making more money than someone. If someone isn't making as much money, or they may work a job, you might own a business, you feel like they can't tell me how to make no money, then you probably won't get as far as God. You might not get to the level that God wants you to get to, because you stuck in your ways, and that's called arrogance and pride. That's not how God wants you to operate. That's not how He wants me or you to operate, or none of us. So, I encourage anyone that may have this mentality to kind of, shake that off and break that, should I say, and repent and ask God to help you really see what's right in front of you and what's the truth and what's really for you, instead of what you want to be for you. Because all the time, what we want is not for us, and that's something that I've learned as well. Pride is a conscious killer, but consciousness kills pride. That's what I tell myself. And what I mean by that is, when you operate out of an egotistical, prideful nature, you don't think, you don't think and see things clearly. But when you have consciousness, that gives you a upright thinking. You understand what's to come. You kind of have discernment. You have a free will of thinking. You understand how to think for yourself, and also how to gain from others. And you kind of can, people can pour knowledge into you, and you can pour into yourself as well. But most of all, God can give you the knowledge and give you the discernment to use as well in life. So that's the creator, if anybody, if no one else, should I say, can give you the knowledge and wisdom that you need to excel, right? But when you got the pride, you don't want to hear nothing from nobody. And sometimes in life, even in the negative situations, God can use these things to help you grow. And we don't see it like that when we operate out of pride and ego. I've been a victim of that. I wouldn't say so much of thinking, but more so like kind of more so in a way of, forgiving or something like that. I was the type of person, I think I might have spoken this in a video previously. I was the type of person that I never really wanted to, let things go. And that's an egotistical, prideful way of thinking. Even if, I was righteously, honestly, I was done wrong in situations and, my past. So I felt like that was, I felt like I had the right to think like that and feel like that as a child. But as I grew older and I got more mature, I went through things, I just, I got closer to God. I just understood that was just a burden on me. That wasn't affecting the people that did things to me. But, that's another video for another day. But I'm just, that's just an example of the prideful nature that I personally experienced. But from the other people that was around me, for what I've seen, it was mostly older people that feel like, they know it all, and they feel like, they can't be told nothing from a child or from someone that's younger, or a kid or whatever you may consider it as, because we don't know nothing, or we probably haven't lived as long as they have, or done some of the things they've done, experienced some of the things they've done, experienced some of the things they've experienced, should I say. But the funny thing is, a lot of the things they partook in are unjustified. It's kind of like, you shouldn't want that to be what if you're someone in the family, right? If you're a father, a aunt, a cousin, a brother, a uncle, or whoever it may be, a mother, and you partaking in negativity, and you feel like, well, you can't tell me nothing. You don't know what I know. You ain't been through what I've been through. And if that's what you're telling your child, yeah, we haven't been there yet. But if you operated out of a negative, immature mindset, you shouldn't want us to go there. You should be trying to tell us, what come with that. If you see us going down that way, or that pathway of life at a early age, out of the immaturity and should I say the unjustified thinking that we may have, because we don't have the knowledge and understanding of what we may be doing being so young, or even if we're not. But you should already give us the fair warning ahead of time to let us know, hey, look, I've done a lot of this already. This lifestyle that I live, I don't want this for you. I want better. As opposed to, when it may be a form of correction, or what you may consider as disrespect is not. It's really a form of correction from not just the person that's in front of you that you might consider a kid, or somebody that you might feel like can't tell you nothing because you know it all and you prideful, and they ain't experienced things like you, and you older and you more mature in your mind you are, what you not. It's really God. That's God sending another person to you to kind of straighten your path and get you on a straight, narrow path because you loose. So that's how we got to look at it sometimes. But and it worked both ways. It's for the same way it's for elders. It's for young adults as well and children. So it worked both ways. But I'm just saying, for what I've been through, I've been through this a lot with my father. People like that. So I say an example like that. Should I say? I've been through this a lot with my father. So that's how our relationship was, rocky a lot. We never really could see eye to eye because we live life different. For one, we see life different. We've done things different, and we just don't agree on a lot of terms. And that's just an example right there. But that's kind of how I was introduced to this type of mindset young, how age don't define maturity. But that's more of a personal understanding. But he know, if he see this video, he knows exactly what I'm speaking of. This ain't to shun him or downplay him or nothing like that. This is just the truth, and I speak facts. And don't nobody gotta like it. He don't gotta like it, but hey, it is what it is. And I come from a place of honesty and righteousness, and that's what I'm put here to do. And I just speak facts. And if you don't like facts, then hey, look, find another channel, click on something else. But a lot of times, in life, we'll come across a lot of people that may think like this, and we may not even know these people personally, should I say. But sometimes it'll be from a virtual standpoint, it'll be an outside source. It'll be someone that may be referring or speaking about these people that they may know. So it'll be from a standpoint of, I'll give you an example. In today's society, we see a lot of younger people that are more disorderly and kind of rude or disrespectful or whatever you may consider, right? And it usually comes from their upbringing. They probably don't have a upbringing of righteousness and loyalty and respect, honor, wisdom, courage. They don't come from that foundation in the household, and they definitely taught about the word of God. So that's not just a lot of people question it. They look at it like, why they act like this? And a lot of their parents, they inherit it from their household, from there. Sometimes if they got parents around, some of them don't. So it's a lot of different emotions involved. It's anger, it's inherited conflict. It's always something that brings that type of behavior on. Because if you got a family full of chaotic people, and no one is kind of telling anybody how to behave, and no one is at the forefront to say, hey, look, this ain't right. We're going to move in the upright manner. We ain't going to keep putting on the same trauma and the same, we ain't going to display the same behaviors amongst the next generation because, we already did that 5-6 generations ago. And now y'all got children and grandchildren. Let's show them something different. If no one's speaking like that, then what else do you know besides what you see? So that's why a lot of the younger generation is so wild and reckless. I know a lot of people like to call them YNs, YBs. I don't do that personally. I like to, I want to kind of, I'm actually going to be one of the ones to, kind of dismantle that terminology. I hope so, at least. That's what I was put here to do. I don't really call nobody that. I call people by their name. I definitely don't want nobody to call me that. Don't consider me that at all because I'm a king. Let's call ourselves young kings and queens if nothing else. Don't call yourself a YN or a YB. That's disrespectful. Even if you may exhibit the behavior that's, disorderly and dysfunctional, that is, you do have time to correct yourself before life is over with and you do something that'll end your life and your chance at livelihood and freedom for good, So just, it's all about consciousness and willing to change and getting around a better circle and understanding life and asking God to correct, to help you correct your behavior and getting a close relationship. So, that's why I try my best not to condemn people or judge without knowing what their life is and what their story is. And, I if anything, I encourage and I help and I endeavor and I give them the endeavors of life and any type of enlightenment that I can to help them grow. So no matter who it may be and what walk of life they may come from, we don't got to live like the same to see we don't got to live like the same to see a better pathway on the other side. You might come from a different walk of life than me. You might be in the streets and doing whatever, and I'm of course not, but I can still identify with that because that's how I grew up and that's what I was around. And at the same time, I want to see people grow. I don't want to keep seeing the young people lose their life and go to prison and catch charges and get felonies and things like that, and have children young out of wedlock. I don't want that for the young men and women, and they lost their life, especially when they, like I said, they come from a broken home and they don't really understand what life is, and they got to kind of make their own idea, so that's why they need the leadership and the fellowship of the, of the older people and the elders, whether it's family or not. But family matters most, of course, but unfortunately, all the time, your family ain't family. They ain't gonna always be there for you and do the things you need them to do, tell you what you need them to tell them. So that's where outside sources come in, and of course God will send people your way and when you least expect it. But age, like I said, doesn't define maturity. It doesn't define wisdom and knowledge, because that comes in all shapes and sizes. Think of it when you have a child. This is another example. Think of it as a child. As a child grow, when it's first born, it cries, it starts to cry. And that's a signal for many things. That can be a signal for a cry for help, for his mother, his father. That could be a signal that it's hungry. That could be a signal that the child is in pain, because the child can't physically, or should I say verbally, talk. And you'll be wondering why, if you're not already told this by someone that has children, that or if you don't already know the clues and the conscious and aspects of, I know the time of day that my child cried. That takes learning experience, especially being a first-time parent. I'm not, but I understand because I have a lot of cousins. Of course, I have a sister, but when she was a baby, I understood why she would cry, why she would be in pain. I understood what things meant at certain times of day. Then I understand her behavior even now. So, but like I said, she teaches me a lot that she don't even know. The same way I pour knowledge into her. I tell her to be righteous, be great, be better than me, be better than your parents. The circumstances and the surroundings that you see don't exhibit that. Go further than that in life. Understand that right now is not forever. Be a woman of God. Don't let any man just do whatever to you and treat you any kind of way. Don't let anybody do anything to you and treat you any kind of way. Make sure that you demand respect and stand on your respect and your dignity, if nothing else, and let others know that that's what you mean and you stand for that, because without that, you nothing. If you don't got your dignity and your loyalty and your respect for yourself, how can somebody else exhibit that for you? And I tell her this, is she only 6 years old. So, and I notice when I tell all these things that's so, all this exonerating, so I say not exonerating, but all of this, all of the, this great and astronomical knowledge, her eyes light up. She don't really even respond by saying, thank you, or, I appreciate it, because she probably really can't, she understand, but she probably don't really mentally understand 100% what I'm telling her, because I'm speaking the dialogue that I'm giving her is so versatile. It's different than what she's used to hearing, because she used to being spoken to like a kid. She ain't used to having these type of one-on-one conversations, even with her parents or anybody that she's around or the family. But me as a brother, it's my duty to lead her in the righteous path and protect her. That's one of the roles that I play as well as a protector and the guidance. You know what I'm saying? So if I'm not there to do that, then I'm failing already. So, that's how I look at it. But so for me to exhibit my past trauma and my, the negativity that I see, if I bring that in front of her, then I'm leading her in a negative path. And, that's what God speaks against. We supposed to pour into the children the knowledge and the wisdom that we have, whether it's from an aspect of You know, whether we seen was wrong or right. You know, if we seen something wrong, we supposed to tell them to go against that. And when we see them doing wrong, we supposed to always correct children from a way of knowledge and understanding. And that don't always mean physically, you know, and that comes with maturity and age, of course, and wisdom. But like I said, same way with the maturity and age and the knowledge, you know, that does go both ways. It's a duality aspect in that. You know, like I said, she teaches me a lot. She teaches me how to become a better person, how to exonerate and exhibit, you know, better behavior as a brother. You know, she teaches me things that I should tell her, things that I shouldn't do. You know, when she acts out or when she made you know, the behavior, when it's just our relationship grows over time, you know. And I look at her, you know, just, you know, the way she dressed, you know, so we dress very similar. Of course, she's a girl, but it's, as far as like, we both into fashion. I noticed that young, and that have a lot to do with our dad, because a lot of the same things that he, you know, put me in and dressed me in and, you know, kind of put me on to as a young child, now he put on too. So now I kind of know what about her. She teaching me already how to be a father before I have my own kids. So, you know, she just teaching me so much at a young age. And I'm only 26 and she's 6 years old, so we 20 years apart. You know, and I do remember the first time I held, there was such a great feeling, and I already knew in my mind, like, okay, wow, the purpose of her being born is bigger than me. It's, you know, now I have a duty, you know, because at the time I really didn't know my calling was this big, to not only for her but for to reach millions of people. I didn't really understand that life. You know, I didn't really know what my calling was until God placed it on me. But when she was sent here, then I knew, okay, it definitely was to impact her, if nothing else. But you know, that's just one of the aspects. Of course, with all my cousins that's been born over the years, because we so much, you know, the age difference is so big within us. But at the same time, you know, I pick something. Like I said, I always been the type of person I look and observe before I talk. You know, we all got you know, 2 eyes, 2 ears, and 1 mouth for a reason. And I use my 2 eyes and 2 ears more than anything in any environment. You know, so I might see something that may be, you know, to one person it may seem like it's harsh or cruel, or somebody they let's say an example, somebody may not understand what I'm looking at. It may be something that somebody may call lame or stupid or goofy, or they just may not be able to digest what I'm, you know, observing or looking at or watching, because they don't, you know, that's not their type of they don't entertain that type of the knowledgeable aspects of what I'm looking at. But everything that I'm looking at, I always try to get everything that I'm watching and everything that I'm entertaining and listening to. I always make sure it's something that I can get and I can digest knowledge from. I don't really waste time on anything that I can never get nothing out of, especially a knowledgeable aspect and nothing that can give me wisdom, because that can be used in many ways and it's bigger than me. So that's something that I know in life, and I've already used that, and I've gotten the mentality from, you know, the experiences I've been through and the time I've wasted and things like that. Now I'm getting older to understand I don't have as much time to waste, because, you know I'm young, but I'm not going to be young forever. And I have a big impact, and I'm on this earth. I'm on this earth to have a big impact on many people. I'm going to be a family man. I'm going to be a businessman. You know, I'm going to be doing so many different things. You know, as I mentioned, I got cousins. I got a lot of people that look up to me. You know, I got a lot of people that's depending on me. Of course, you know, we can't take everybody with us, but on our journey of life, should I say, because God chose us. You know, he ain't choose the people around us, but sometimes when he choose us, you know, he chose us to make a difference for many other people. And it ain't always about what we can do for them in a physical form. Of course, that's a great gesture, but I personally believe knowledge and wisdom is something you can give somebody that's priceless. You know, that's me personally what I believe. You know, a lot of people may you know, think differently, and that's fine. We all entitled to our own opinions, but you know, if I pour my level of maturity and wisdom into a child or a younger person, or even someone that may be older that may not have it like I have it, or they may lack certain things or lack knowledge that I have. I might understand stocks, or I might get this knowledge from a person that know about crypto. It's another person that might be trying to get into that. They older than me or younger. I can feed the knowledge and pass that on to them that I was fed, and now we all could win. Now we all successful. Banking accounts and things like that. When it comes to LLCs, so this type of stuff, I tell a lot of people that's getting into business now. Of course, I ain't gonna say I'm everywhere I want to be, but through the knowledge and the understanding that I've gained, I know a lot of things that need to be exhibited through opening up business accounts and having different brands. And that's also what we call to do, to spread the knowledge in the gospel and any type of understanding. When you get wisdom, you're supposed to spread that without looking for a handout, should I say. That's just what God called us to do. So I do got some scriptures relating to this message as well, and this is based on maturity. Let me see which ones I pulled. I believe I have one from Philippians. This is one from Philippians 3 verse 15. It says, "Let those of us who are mature think this way, and if in anything you think otherwise, God will reveal that also to you." And that goes back similar to what I was saying about passing out the knowledge and understanding to other people, and not thinking so much that maturity is based on age, but it's not. It's more so based on experiences, wisdom and knowledge and way of living. That's me personally what I believe. So, and even God Himself was speaking that. To my knowledge, that's what I interpreted from that text. He was basically saying, don't be stuck in your ways, and don't think that, maturity is a one track mind, is a one step thing, or definitely don't operate out of pride and ego and think that it's based on age, or you might have done things that somebody else ain't done, or don't be cocky and boastful with it, and feel like it's a thing about age and how old you are, and if somebody is your child or your nephew or your grandson, granddaughter, whatever, they can't tell you nothing. And what that does ultimately is create dysfunction. And then, as I mentioned before, we see a lot of the younger children now, they just all over the place. They're acting crazy. They shooting and doing whatever. Y'all know what they doing. So having children out of wedlock and, a lot of the crazy behavior is embraced. That's something that's, it's not even shunned, of course to the righteous it is, but to the ones that, they don't have the discernment. They don't see past what's in front of them, especially on social media or even in person. They go with it. They exhibit it because they can identify with that, and that's something that they look at it as it's the normal, so they don't know nothing else. But like I said, when you shut opinions down from children, especially whether they right or wrong, hear them out first, and then let them understand, okay, well, that's not true, or this where you went wrong at, or when they're correcting you, and that's, it don't matter how much it may hurt you. It don't matter how much your ego may be bruised. The truth is the truth. It don't matter who it's coming from. And I feel like sometimes a lot of people get caught up, even with, a religious belief system, in the churches and things like that. That's a big part in it. But outside of that, like I said, I feel like a lot of people get caught up in the aspect of, you really can't, you can't really tell nobody nothing if they just stuck in their ways. They kind of older than you and think they know more, so they feel like your opinion don't matter. And like I said, I know from experience that caused division. That's one of the last things you want from especially your child or somebody that's very close to you, because sometimes it can do so much damage. It won't really do good, in that relationship, of course, but even in their lives, you may see some of your negative behavior that they may be addressing, and if they're trying to correct it or say they feel uncomfortable with it, it's something they don't want you to do, they don't like it, whatever it might be, whatever the situation may be that the child or the younger person may be addressing, if they're trying to give you knowledge, you don't want to hear it. They telling you their opinion about what happened to them. You don't believe them. You don't want to hear what they're saying. You don't think it's truthful. You shutting their opinion down and telling them yours, or you kind of maybe you may be somebody that may you may be a person. It's still a lot of the pride and ego aspect, but you may be a person that you go against what's thoughtful and willing for aspect of thinking. So if somebody come to you as a younger person with a business plan, and they see they from what God put on their heart, and you might be a parent or someone that they look up to in the family, especially as a older citizen, or a cousin, a brother, a sister, an uncle, or aunt, a mother, or whoever it may be, and they come to you like, hey mom, I love fashion, or I love art, and it's this art gallery coming up. Maybe I should go to this, and I can contact some people that's into art just like me. They'll probably help me with my drawings, and you ever tell them that you've been drawing all this time, you ain't gonna do nothing, boy. That stuff's stupid. And you might shut their plans down. You might be somebody like that'll feel like, okay, I ain't do it, so they ain't gonna do it. So, and that's might be a part of the neglect, or the self-doubt, the childhood trauma, or whatever you want to call it you have. So, and like I said, that'll cause the resentment, because eventually that person will tell you they'll stop communicating with you. Or as I mentioned before, if you're someone that put your child in a dangerous environment, or you put your nephew, your cousin, your sister, brother, whatever, if you exhibit a lot of behaviors, do drugs around them and things like that, and they don't really like that because they don't partake in that, and if you tell them, well, you ain't doing it, so mind your business, or you got home, right, but you still got a dangerous environment, your mindset is still from an immature mentality, because you feel like you older, so you can do what you want to do. You grown, and we get caught up in that mindset a lot. I don't, but a lot of older people that I know personally, they get caught up in the mentality where it's like, they get caught up in the aspect of, well, okay, I'm grown, I can do what I want to do, and can't nobody tell me nothing. And I see a lot of them, they fail in life. They don't go far like that. They really don't go far. Some of them don't even live long, not speaking ill on nobody or wishing death or nothing like that. But a lot of them, they usually hit their head a lot of times and don't learn from their mistakes, because, a foolish man, for me, I look at it like this. Once a fool, always a fool, and, it shouldn't be that way, but usually it is. But sometimes, in other cases, it can be a foolish man, can be full of pride, and me personally, that's a great example, because if you're the type of person that don't learn from your mistakes, and you understand it's something that you lacking mentally, and that is probably a relationship with God, of course. You lacking discernment, accountability, things like that. You don't understand where you're going wrong at in life. And that goes into what I'm saying with the maturity. So you're lacking that as well. So that's something that, you guys, whoever, if you're looking at this video and this apply to you, you should, I'm kind of all over the place. Forgive me, y'all. I told y'all before, I ain't so used to being in front of the camera, and I'm working on that. I'm growing still. I'm still growing, and I'm still developing myself. I'm still maturing, and I'm still kind of, getting myself together, and I'm just, God working on me in front of this camera. He getting me content creator prepared, I guess you could say. I'm used to the guy doing the recording and doing I'm used to doing the recording and taking the pictures for people, should I say. I ain't so used to being in front of the camera, so I know I'm used to this, I'm still getting used to this YouTube and content creating, but so I know y'all can see the nervousness and things like that, but due to the Holy Spirit, these videos get put out, and I'm still gonna deliver the content. But like I said, I know I'm all over the place, but like I said, if you someone that's got this spirit of ego and pride and immaturity, and you feel like age defines that, just ask God to help you to remove that spirit, because that's really the devil. That's how the devil will creep in your life and dismantle your mindset and have you forever feeling like pride. And pride that leads to a lot of things. That leads to it leads to chaos in the end. Your life will be full of chaos and disruption. Because the devil, he don't want everything organized. Of course, no one is perfect, so nothing will be 100% fully together. But with God, you could never lose, and He don't want that. God, the devil don't want that. The devil wants you on his side. He wants you confused. He wants you stupid. He wants you dumb. He wants you immature. That's how he wants you, because when you like that, you don't know where you're going. You think of it as a maze. If you live in life in a maze, how do you know where the end point is? You don't really know where you're going. You don't know the result of, immature from an immature mentality. You think that you'll probably think that what's unrighteous is righteous. You see what I mean? So that's a backwards way of thinking. But from a person that has discernment, they walk with God, so they already know, not to touch a stove while it's on. A dumb person probably, they gotta keep doing the same thing. They gotta keep getting burned before they realize how hot it is, and before you know it, too late. They'll be how many burns will it take before they're on fire? So you just gotta look at it like that. And me personally, I see things before they happen, and even if not, if I have to do it personally and make my own mistake, I know, okay, I did that. I went over there. I had that relationship with them and it didn't work out. I was, sexually immoral, and I had my values demoralized as a man. I was dealing with different women or whatever the situation might be. I learned from my mistakes and I apply that to life, and I reiterate that into other people, especially children. Because me personally, that's who I really cater to most. I understand that, we should apply knowledge to all, but I don't spend a lot of my time pouring into a lot of older people, especially when I know their ways. I ain't saying not everybody, but when I know their ways, if they just, you can't tell them nothing and they just feel like they know it all, you can. I understand that you can't help everybody, and some people you just can't pour into. If your cup is half empty and their cup is empty, it's like, if they don't want to refill their cup or help it get where yours is, it's like, what are you really doing? You're just wasting time and energy. So it's like, and that's something we don't have the ways. I don't have it, and I'm just trying to better myself. So, everybody just can't, they can't join you on your journey and understand that. And some people don't want to change, I understand and I accept that as well, but it's all about, like I said, becoming a better version of yourself. That's what I seek, and I ask God to help me do every day, to help me become a better man than I was the day before. Give me the wisdom, the discernment, the knowledge to help me see who for me and what's not for me. And I just, like I said, I want to keep pouring knowledge and wisdom to whoever I can, and give it. And I ask God to help me get the knowledge and wisdom and discernment to live life comfortably and understand what's for me, and navigate throughout life, so I can give it to the audience, and not just y'all, but the people that I know personally, and even the ones I don't know, because that's what I'm here to do, to uplift and encourage. So with that being said, y'all make sure y'all like, subscribe, comment, y'all share this video, and yeah, like I said, if you, once again, for the last time, if you a egotistical, prideful person, dealing with the aspect and the thinking and the mentality that maturity defines, that age defines maturity, then, you're wrong. And unfortunately, that's not true. But, you still got time to change that mentality before it's too late. I hope you ain't, done something that's too deep in, or whatever it may be, that's in life that you might feel like you can't come back from. God forgives all. I'm not God, but He does send messages to do His work, and like I said, we all are held accountable for our actions. But like I said, break the covenant of pride and ego, because that's all a sin, and we don't want to live like that, because confusion is a killer, and that's something that the devil want us in. When you operate out of the discernment, when you got the passion of Christ, when you got the Holy Ghost in you, you get the wisdom, the knowledge, you get the experiences teach you, and you understand from your mistakes. You're not going to be perfect. You're still going to do things that may be dumb sometimes. You're still going to make mistakes. You're still going to, operate out of, I wouldn't say stupidity, but, you may make mistakes and understand that, you may sometimes fall short of the grace of God, and He gives us grace and glory, which I'm thankful for. Because if He didn't, I would have been gone a long time ago. So thank God for that. So yeah, man. Like I said, once again, y'all like, comment, subscribe, share this video. I'm gonna be back at y'all with some more content. Like I said, man, y'all see me off this camera. If y'all been wondering where I'm at, I gotta take breaks sometimes, get my mind together. Mental health is serious. Y'all check on y'all people, man. I make sure I check on my mind as much as I can. Y'all just, keep spreading the positive energy. It's a lot going on. We living in some tough times, but we gonna make it through. I know I'm gonna make it through. And I'm gonna just keep all y'all in my prayers. Stay safe out there. Be blessed. Appreciate y'all.